Hi friends, it's Taylor. Welcome back to the channel where I share my financial journey to debt freedom. It's been a while since I've been on camera and also since I've done a monthly budget review, so I figured I would tackle both in this video. And just a quick notice before we get started, I have made a couple of tweaks to my budget systems, and there's also a bit of housekeeping that I need to do in this video that is not a part of my normal budget routine. So this video may take a little longer than my normal budget reviews, but overall it's still going to be the same essential information. And for those who are new, I use Monarch Money as my all-in-one budgeting platform, so that's what we're going to use today in the video. And now let's get into Monarch Money and start my budget review. All right, we are here in Monarch Money. I actually don't use the dashboard anymore, so we're going to skip right past that and go to accounts. I can't remember if I said this in the beginning of the video, but we are going to be doing my budget review for July, and I'm filming this in August, so some of my numbers are not going to be exactly what they were in July, but nevertheless, we're going to continue to do what we can. And we're actually going to skip over my cash balances because this is as of August and it's not really relevant for July's numbers. We can see that my investments is currently at $1,800. I'm almost at $2,000, and I said I wanted to reach $2,500 in my 401k before the end of the year, and I think we're still on track for that goal. So I'm excited to almost hit another milestone on the way to that goal. And now I want to get into some of the big changes for my net worth. So I mentioned this in my current Living Alone on a Budget series. I believe it was episode 3 of the savings plan. And I talked about the fact that the WF loan that I've been tracking for months now was actually being double counted in Nelnet. I had no idea that WF was one of my Nelnet loans. So considering that this is going to be paid off next month, I just have to send the proper documentation to Nelnet, and then that will get removed from my account, and that's less money that I owe them. So that will be awesome, and that's why I have in parentheses that this was Nelnet AD. And then I have my couch loan here, and this balance is actually down $60.56 because I made a payment towards this month. All right, I went ahead and fixed the balance for Affirm off camera, but we can see that my current balance, which is actually accurate now, is $28.4609 for Affirm, and then I have all 5 of my Nelnet student loans now instead of 6, and the interest for all of these are paused until October of next year. And then the last thing is that all of my other debts are now paid off. So the business membership actually got paid off last month in July, so no more payments there. And then also my family debt balance is completely paid off. It is so satisfying to have this section completely done. And now I can just focus on my student loans. And as for my net worth, this does look a little crazy over the past 3 months. I'm actually going to switch to the 6-month view. There we go. This looks a little bit more, I guess, beneficial in my favor. And I also talked about this in my Living Alone on a Budget series on the first episode, the financial overview, and I recapped the whole situation about why my net worth shot up and why I'm in a way better situation than I am now. If you want more context on that, be sure to check that video out. But the long story short is that once I paid off this family debt balance right here, I was able to skyrocket my net worth. So that was definitely super positive. I'm actually going to go see what Koda wants because he is very talkative right now. So I just gave Koda some treats. I think that will keep him calm for the rest of the video. Time will tell. But as we're talking about my net worth, something I'm considering is the fact that my Affirm loan right now is based on projected interest due, and I might not actually be paying this full amount of $2,800. So I think what I'll have to do for now is just keep this loan amount as is, and then once I fully pay off Affirm, I will just retroactively adjust my net worth, which means it'll be a little bit more of a tedious process, but I just don't want to constantly change the amount of the loan when I just have no idea what I'm going to be paying at the end. But now that we have reviewed all of my account balances, we're going to go to the next step, which is my recurring tab. And since this is defaulting to the current month that we're in, which is August, I'm going to go back to July and just scan through everything to make sure things came out the way they were supposed to. So as I'm looking through recurring, I'm noticing some things are missing. So Pepco for my electric bill is not on here. I'm also missing some weeks of my groceries. I also think I'm going to rename Comcast to Xfinity because that's what it actually shows up as on my bill. And I also don't see YouTube Premium on here. So we do have a couple of to-dos here for the recurring page. I want to start by getting the electric bill to show up on here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is do a quick search on Mac by doing Command K or Control K for Windows. I'm going to search for Pepco, which is my electric bill merchant. And I'm going to go to Edit Merchant and mark it as recurring so it shows up on the bill calendar. My Pepco bill is actually billed every 40-ish days. It's really not consistent, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt for all of my budgeting purposes. But I think just for the sake of it showing up on my calendar every month, I'm going to go with every month. And this is an expense, and we'll say the starting date is the same date as the first transaction, which was August 16th. And the amount that I'm budgeting for those 40 days is going to be $180. And then make sure it's active and click save. And then for this current transaction that already came out, we have to manually mark this as recurring because if you change a merchant after the fact, it doesn't retroactively make all the previous ones recurring. And if we go back to the recurring tab, I should be seeing Pepco there. And I know that this is for August. I forgot that I didn't get a bill yet in July because of just the billing cycle. But now that's here and that should be showing up in future months. If I go ahead, let's see, yep, Pepco is there on the 16th. The next thing I want to update is my groceries. I am no longer using Instacart anymore just due to the extra fees, even though I had a membership, and Amazon Fresh is just way more affordable now. What that means, though, is that I have to pay extra close attention to my transactions because everything is just showing up under Amazon, and I have to distinguish between my grocery purchases and everything else that I might get from Amazon. So I'm going to go to transactions and filter where the merchant is Amazon and the category is groceries. There we go. And when I click apply, it looks like I didn't actually select the merchant to be Amazon only. There we go. So click apply. And we see that I have 3 transactions here that actually need to be marked as Amazon Fresh, which is the name of their grocery delivery service. So I'm going to select all 3 transactions, go to edit, and we're going to change the merchant to Amazon Fresh, save and apply to all 3. And then I'm going to go back to recurring and back to July. Now I have my grocery shopping here, so it looks a little bit more realistic now. And the last thing I want to do is rename Comcast to Xfinity. Okay, that did not work for some reason. Let's go into it. Rename this to Xfinity. A merchant with this name already exists. Okay, so let's just merge them then. So we're gonna edit this merchant, delete, and move everything over to Xfinity. There we go. And let's go to Xfinity, and then we have to mark this as recurring. This is every month on the 1st, and the amount is $45.90, and click save. And if I go back to recurring and back to July, Xfinity, there we go. And then the last thing for YouTube Premium, I need to make sure that the amount is actually $14.83. So when I was planning for a YouTube Premium, I was only going with the base price, which is $13.99, but I forgot that they charge tax. So I'm just going to update this to $14.83 and then click save. And I believe that's it for the recurring expenses. I'm not going to worry about the duplicates or anything right now. I'm really only paying attention to the check marks, and everything looks good. So now we're going to head over to transactions. The main thing that I used to do here on the transactions page is, in addition to reviewing all of them, just see if there's anything work related. I no longer have to focus on doing that because I now have a debit card specifically for my work transactions. However, last week I accidentally refilled my Metro card with my personal debit card, so I need to make sure I mark that as a work transaction. So I'm just going to search for Smart Trip, and this is the transaction that I'm talking about. So I'm just going to open this up and mark it as work. And now that I've marked this transaction as work related, this prompts me to request a reimbursement from my job, which I already did today, and I'm expecting to get that $10 back into my account sometime this month. So I'm going to go to my budget, and we're just doing this for August right now. We're going to go to potential and then reimbursements, and I'm going to say that I'm expecting $10 this month as a reimbursement for that expense. I actually go to the filter here and do needs review by, and it'll show any transactions that I need to review. But since I've already done this for July, I think we can just move straight into my actual budget review. So we're going to head over to the budget tab and go back to July, and I have quite a bit of changes that I'm making to my budget structure in Monarch, and I'm about to walk you through those now. So the first thing is that I'm going to get rid of my rollover categories. For those who have been around on my channel for a while, you know that I've been using the rollover categories to note any extra money that I had in my bank account from the previous month, as well as money that was in my bank account going into the next month. But I really just found myself not wanting to spend time doing that. I still recommend it as a strategy. I actually have a full video on how I was managing that in Monarch, but it's just not something that I want to dedicate my time to anymore. And also, if I go to the forecast tab, you'll see that all these months that I was using the rollover, they never actually show up in your forecast because there's no actual income or spending there. And then it makes it seem that I am over budget or under budget for those months. And I really want my numbers to be as accurate as possible. And the way Monarch is set up, it's really not meant to track rollover spending. So I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm just going to go to budget, and we're going to delete or deactivate these categories. So that is now gone. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here for this rollover. And deactivate. There we go. And the next thing that I want to do is put all of my income into one group. I just don't really see the point. Koda. I originally had planned and then potential because I wanted to separate the things that I know I'm going to get this month and things that I might get. But the only category that I have at the top now is just paychecks. And yeah, I don't like the visual clutter. So we're going to move paychecks down into potential and click save. And then I'm going to delete the planned group and move that into potential. And then we're just going to rename this from potential to income breakdown. I don't know. And we'll click save. I'll probably change the name of that later, but I can't think of anything else more creative. I actually need to reorder some things. So I'm going to go to categories and put paychecks at the top. And then we're going to do reimbursements because I usually get some kind of reimbursement every month. And then we'll do business, interest, other income, gifts, and then my dividends and capital gains are actually completely hidden. So since we're looking at my income breakdown, I guess we can go ahead and start with the budget closeout. So I like to use the zero-based budget philosophy as much as I can. So I like to make sure that the budget and actual columns are matching up exactly and that the remaining for each category is 0. And it looks like that's what I have done already for all of July. So we're going to close income out, and my total income that I had to work with for July was $3,088. And next we'll go into my needs. So I actually didn't have to pay rent for July due to the promotion that I had at my apartment. I only had to pay the prorated rent for June, and then July was completely free. And then this $56 here that you see is for the monthly security deposit premium that I opted in to do instead of paying a security deposit up front. And as we're going down the page, you'll see that I have some new budget categories that are either completely new line items or just ones that I merged together. And the first one that I merged together was actually bills and utilities. So this is going to be my utilities for my apartment, of course. It's going to be my insurances, just anything that is absolutely necessary that is auto debited from my account is going to be in this bills and utilities category. So for July, that included my internet, my pet insurance, and my renter's insurance, which is required by my complex. So definitely got to make sure that gets paid. And then for groceries, I was actually under budget. I normally budget $360 a month and I spent $337. Household was right on track at $70. And then for pet supplies, I budget $70 and I only spent $55. And then for laundry, I am budgeting $25 a month and I spent $26. So just $1 over. And then for my wants, my therapy is actually billed every 2 weeks, and I had 3 sessions in July, so that was $150 instead of the usual $100. And then for health and wellness, I actually am not supposed to be paying out of pocket for these because I have an HSA which comes out of my work debit card. But for these particular expenses that I did this month in July, they were not HSA eligible, so I did have to pay for them out of pocket, and that was my protein shakes. So I have to think about whether I want to include my protein shakes as part of my groceries budget or if I want to start budgeting separately for health and wellness, specifically for my shakes. I'm just not sure. We'll see how things go. My subscriptions was $51. This is actually going to be going down a little bit because I canceled my Squarespace website. I just was spending a little bit too much money on it for the return on investment that I was not getting, which is why my shop is just going to be on Coffee for now because it's free and everyone can still access all of my templates. And let me see, what was new for August? Oh, and then also YouTube Premium. So it kind of balances out a little bit. But overall, my budget for subscriptions is going to be around $40, but for July, it was $51. Fun money was $45. And for gifts, this was actually technically a loan to somebody, but I just consider any money that I give someone a gift because if I can't afford to give it away, I can't afford to lend the money. So that's it for wants. And then for wealth, I did my last Wayne payment for that business membership, so that is completely done. I started my Affirm payments for my couch, and then I also, of course, paid towards my student loan, which will get paid off next month in September. Super exciting. Okay, this is saying I have $60 left, though. Let me go back. Oh, this one should be hidden. So we're going to go into this account real quick and go to edit account. And we're going to make sure that all of these are hidden from the budget. And there we go. Now we see that it's hidden and it should not affect my budget. And now it's $297. Okay, we're good there. And then rollover. Yeah, we can actually delete this group too. All right, so now we just have needs, wants, wealth, and other. Okay, so for other, I did have a couple of moving expenses that I had to pay. So starting with the first thing that I had to get that I really wasn't planning to was my curtains and the curtain track. I will show you all a video on screen of what it looks like. I actually would have preferred not to get these curtains anytime soon, but Koda likes to chew on blinds and he started messing with the ones that came with the apartment. So I invested in some quality curtains. And then the curtain track that's propped up inside the ceiling just makes it easier for the curtains to move around, especially since he likes to move the curtains himself and sit on the windowsill. And then I also got some end tables that double as eating trays. Since I don't have a dining table right now, I wanted to have a place that I could eat that would not be my desk because I want to keep my personal life and my work life separate. And I'm also a clumsy person, so I did not want to risk spilling anything on my work stuff at all. And then for my safety net, these are all of the expenses that I just completely did not plan for. which kind of makes me mad looking at it again, but I'm going to explain everything that happened. So starting with my apartment complex, I actually had a duplicate charge on there, which was very annoying, but they did credit it to my account, and that did apply to August 1st. But still, it was just like, why was this charge even there? They seem to be having some kind of technical issues, but that's money that came out of my account. But that was unexpected, and that was $112. So the next thing that I have is Uber regarding those end tables that I just talked about. So Amazon told me they could not deliver my package. They told me to contact USPS. I contacted USPS. They said I needed to pick it up in person. I don't have a car, so I had to get an Uber. Then when I get there, USPS says they have no record of my package. So everything was considered lost. I paid for Uber for nothing. So then I requested a refund through Amazon. And then after I requested the refund through Amazon, the tables magically showed up at my door. And yeah, it was a mess. I have the tables now, so I'm very grateful, but that was definitely an annoying process, and I spent $35 on the Uber. And then the next thing, I had to pay $265 to a locksmith because I locked myself out of the apartment. This was the first time that I was taking Koda outside of the apartment, out for a walk, and I forgot my keys. And more specifically, I left them right by the front door. So I was very, very mad at myself. But yeah, $265 for a locksmith is no joke. And I never, ever want to pay for that again. And then the last thing was I had to make a key copy for my office keys. My job specifically asked me to do this, and they said they would reimburse me. That was $8.46 that I did not plan on spending. But again, they're going to reimburse me, so it's not too much of a big deal. But all in all, that was $420.61 that I spent in unexpected expenses that I had to take out of my emergency fund. And it sucks because if I didn't have to spend that money, my emergency fund would be at $1,000 right now. But now it's half of that at just under $500, and I just have to rebuild it again. I'm still very grateful though that I had the money in case of emergencies, but it was just like, wow, that's almost $500 I spent this month that I wasn't expecting to. And then lastly, I have my goals. Let me go into my emergency fund and see. At the beginning of July, I contributed $489, and then I withdrew $695 for all of this stuff that popped up in the month. And now it's saying that I have a net $205 that I withdrew overall. The reason why this $1,250 is up at the top, because this is what I kept in my checking account to apply to August 1st rent. So I'm going to have to do some thinking off camera how I'm going to track this now that I don't have that rollover category anymore. Yeah, I'm going to leave it alone for now, but I know exactly what that was for. So the next thing I want to do is go to my goals, and you'll see that I have color coded these now. So all of the green ones are savings related. The investments one is yellow, and then my debt ones are red. I added my debt ones because I wanted a way to track in Monarch the balance of me paying off my debt. So we can see that for WF, I have $273.36 remaining, and I've paid off 87% of the original balance. So I just wanted a visual reminder of my progress and everything, and I figured it would be really cool to see that in Monarch, so that's what I did. So you'll see that I don't have my Nelnet debt being tracked here because it's not something that I'm actually making payments on, and I didn't want it here just taking up space. So that's not being tracked. And then also for Affirm, we need to assign this to the new manual account we just created. There we go. And now I see the current balance. And then also for this account, we're going to go to that transaction I created earlier and relate it to the Affirm goal. So when we go back, we actually see the contribution there. Oh, you know what? I got to change the starting balance to the 2906. So that way it shows up right. So now 2906 was the original balance. I've paid off 2% of that, which was $60.56. And now the remaining balance is $28.46. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. Wow, such a small little percentage, but it's better than nothing. And we are going to archive the 1 year fund goal because I'm not pursuing that right now. I'm focusing on my 1K. So we're going to archive that. I'm also going to archive the annual sinking fund and the gift sinking fund. Again, I'm not really focusing on those right now, and I don't want anything on this page that's not really on the horizon. So we'll archive both of those. And then let's also rearrange the priorities. So the 1K is my focus right now. And then WF, that's going to get paid off in September. So we'll move that up. And then Affirm has the highest interest debt. So we'll move that up. And then retirement will be last. There we go. All right. So now we just have 4 goals that we're focusing on right now. It looks a lot more attainable than all the ones that I had before. And lastly, in Monarch, we're going to go to the cash flow tab and take a look at my savings rate for July. So we can see that overall I saved 33.8% of my income in July. Keep in mind that a big percentage of that was actually savings towards August 1st rent. So I'm not really sure if you can count that as savings specifically, but you know, it looks good in terms of data. And then if we scroll down to the Sankey diagram that I have of the groups, we can see the breakdown of everything. So savings, of course, 33.8%, needs was 21.5%, wants was 9.8%, wealth was 9.6%, so just under 10% for both. And then for my other / unplanned expenses was $779.90, which was 25.3% of my income. It hurts to see, but again, like I said before, I'm just grateful that I had the money to do it. So, you know, that's life. Okay, now we're doing the last part of the video, which is updating my projections in Google Sheets. This template is available in my shop. I'll leave the video linked below if you want to see how everything works. But in short, I'm just going to enter the balances that I had for everything at the end of July. So for July, I expected to have $14.78 in my cash, and instead I had higher than that at $22.1075. And then for investments, I expected $1604.56 in my 401k, and I actually had $1653.48, and it went up a little bit. And then for my debts, I expected my overall balance to be $12,746.63, and my debt balance was actually $15,591.35. And if we scroll to the right, we see that my net worth was actually $11,727.12, which was a decrease in my net worth by $1,507.08. And I think this is the first time this year that I've had a decrease in my net worth, which is not a good feeling, but I have to give myself grace because I did move last month and also had all of those unexpected expenses show up. So still a lot of great progress, and I think things will just continue to go up from here. All right, everyone, that is it for today's budget closeout of July. If you have any questions about using Monarch Money for your own journey, I do offer one-on-one coaching for Monarch Money, and the link to that will be in the description. And also, if you're interested in my templates for Google Sheets, those are available on my shop, which is also in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.